Today we are talking about Pluto, but this is not your average history lesson. Oh no, this is a full-blown cosmic detective story. We're talking about a 100-year-long manhunt for a phantom culprit that ended with the discovery of an incredible new world, and it all started with a simple mistake.
So that's the big question, isn't it? How on earth could a tiny little math error, we're talking basically a rounding error, send the world's best astronomers on an epic wild goose chase that accidentally and completely changed our map of the solar system forever? Let's dive in. All right, so every good mystery needs a crime scene. And for this story, our crime scene is way out there in the dark, cold outer edges of the solar system. You see, astronomers knew something was off. It was like a ghost. Some invisible force was gravitationally tugging on the giant planets, and nobody had a clue what it was. Okay, so let's set the stage. Back in 1781, we discover Uranus. Super exciting, but it's acting weird. Its orbit is a little wobbly, not quite following the laws of gravity as everyone understood them. So the theory was, hey, there must be another planet out there pulling on it. And sure enough, in 1846, they point their telescopes where the math said to look, and bam, there's Neptune. Case closed. Well, not quite. See, even after they accounted for Neptune, Uranus still had this tiny nagging little wobble. There was only one explanation. There had to be another huge planet out there. They called it Planet X. So Planet X is officially on the most wanted list. A phantom planet on the loose. And just like that, the hunt was on. This kicked off a massive, decades-long search, with determined astronomers all over the world scanning the heavens for this mysterious object. And this is where our hero enters the story, a 23-year-old astronomer named Clyde Tombaugh. Now, his job was, it was mind-numbingly tedious. He had to take a photograph of a tiny patch of the night sky on a big glass plate. Then, a few days later, he'd take the exact same picture. His job was to compare those two plates, with their hundreds of thousands of stars, and find one single pinprick of light that had moved. That moving dot, that would be their planet. He used this really clever device called a blink comparator, which would basically flash the two photos back and forth, one after the other. The thinking was that all the distant stars would stay perfectly still, but a closer object, like a planet, would look like it was jumping. And then on February 18th, 1930, after months and months of this grueling work, he saw it, a tiny dot jumping back and forth. He had found Planet X. As you can imagine, the world went absolutely wild. They'd found the 9th planet. It was a huge deal. But what to name it? Well, that suggestion actually came from an 11-year-old girl in England named Venetia Burney. She suggested Pluto, the Roman god of the underworld, which seemed perfect for a world so far away in the cold, permanent darkness. And the name stuck. So, case closed, right? The world had its 9th planet, the culprit behind the cosmic wobbles. But here's where our detective story takes a major plot twist. As our technology got better and we got a closer look at our suspect, the whole case against Pluto began to completely fall apart. So remember, the whole reason they were looking for Planet X is that it had to be massive, like Earth-sized or bigger, to have enough gravitational muscle to tug on those giant planets. But the funny thing was, every time we got a better telescope, Pluto just kept shrinking. In 1930, it was thought to be roughly the size of Earth. By 1948, it was downsized to Mars-sized. And then came the final blow. In 1978, astronomers discovered Pluto's biggest moon, Charon. And this was the absolute key. See, by watching how a moon orbits, you can calculate the exact mass of the planet it's circling. And when they did the math for Pluto, they were stunned. It wasn't big at all. It was tiny, only 0.2% the mass of Earth. There was no way something that small could have any effect on giants like Uranus and Neptune. Pluto was innocent. So this created a brand new mystery. If Pluto wasn't the culprit, what was? Was there another, even bigger Planet X still hiding out there? The truth, when it was finally revealed, was more shocking than anyone could have possibly guessed. In 1989, the Voyager 2 spacecraft flew right past Neptune, giving us our first ever close-up look. And the data it sent back, well, it blew the whole case wide open. There was no Planet X, there was no phantom pulling on Uranus. The entire century-long hunt was based on a simple error. Voyager 2's measurements were so incredibly precise, they allowed scientists to finally recalculate Neptune's real mass. And it turned out that our old estimate was off by just 0.5%. That's it, a tiny 0.5% error. But when they plugged that new, correct number into the equations, the wobble in Uranus's orbit just vanished. There was no crime to begin with. Pluto was a completely accidental discovery. So the original case was closed, but now we had a brand new problem. We'd found this world by mistake, and now, with better telescopes, we were starting to find a whole bunch of other similar objects out there in the solar system. It forced astronomers to ask a very fundamental question they'd kind of avoided for a long time.
The real crisis came in 2005 with the discovery of Eris, another icy world way out there that was actually more massive than Pluto. So this forced a difficult choice. Do we make Eris the 10th planet and get ready to add dozens, maybe hundreds more? Or do we finally sit down and come up with a strict scientific definition for what a planet actually is? They chose to redefine.
So in 2006, the International Astronomical Union laid down 3 new rules. Number 1, it's got to orbit the sun. Pluto does that? Check. Number 2, it has to have enough gravity to pull itself into a round, spherical shape. Pluto does that too. Check. But then came rule number 3, and this was the killer. A planet has to have cleared its neighborhood. This basically means it has to be the gravitational boss of its own orbit. And Pluto fails this one. It lives in the crowded Kuiper belt, surrounded by countless other icy objects.
So Pluto was reclassified. Now, a lot of people called it a demotion, but I see it as a promotion. It became the very first member, the king really, of a brand new category of objects, the dwarf planets. It was no longer the smallest of the big guys. It was the biggest and most famous of a whole new class of worlds.
For over 80 years, Pluto was just a blurry dot in our best telescopes. We found it by mistake, argued about it, reclassified it, but we'd never really seen it. Well, in 2015, after a 9-year journey across the solar system, humanity finally paid a visit.
NASA's New Horizons spacecraft was sent to finally see Pluto up close. And let's be honest, most scientists expected to find a boring, dead, crater-covered snowball. What they actually found was so much more complex, active, and beautiful than anyone had ever dared to hope for.
The pictures that came back were just astonishing. We saw this giant, continent-sized heart on its surface made of flowing nitrogen ice. There were mountains made of solid water ice as tall as the Rockies. It has a thin, blue atmosphere, and its surface was this gorgeous patchwork of reds, whites, and oranges. It was incredible.
And it gets even wilder. New Horizons found evidence of cryovolcanoes, ice volcanoes that don't erupt lava, but a cold slush of water and other ices from beneath the surface. All this activity suggests Pluto has a warm, active core, and get this, it might even have a vast liquid water ocean hiding beneath that frozen crust. This little mistake turned out to be one of the most dynamic and interesting worlds in our entire solar system.
Pluto's story is just the perfect reminder that science is a journey, where even our mistakes can lead to these breathtaking revelations. It started as a phantom, became a planet, then a dwarf planet, and finally revealed itself to be this complex, active world. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other cosmic mistakes are just waiting out there for us to stumble upon them?